It's like the best video ever. This is great. We got 25 minutes. We got to go.
Hey,
what is going on, guys? Welcome into another episode of Say That.
hello, Say That Nation. We're happy to see you all here. If this is the first time that you're with us, welcome. We're super excited to have you. Please, if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe, and hit that ring bell so that way, the notification bell rather, so that way you can get more of our videos sent to your YouTube stream.
Absolutely. And so, guys, if you are a first time here on Say That, we want you guys just to have an idea of what we are all about. We are all about the ugly in entrepreneurship. And what's exciting is this season, we've actually added a new kind of dynamic to the conversation. And Janelle and I have been reviewing videos and commentary that other entrepreneurs have been putting out there in the workspace or the YouTube space to kind of educate and add value to a lot of the conversations that a lot of us are having during that ugly come up. And today is no different. So we have another question that came from the audience. So let's get that drum roll and we'll jump into today's question. All right, guys. So today's question is,
what are the levels of wealth? Or what are the levels to wealth?
There we go.
I have to say, we kind of put this in the description box, but my response to this question is, what do you mean there are levels to this? Aren't we all just trying to get wealthy? What do you mean there are levels to wealth, right? So that was my first reaction to this question. When I thought about it some more, I was like, I guess there could be. You could be someone who's just reached whatever your goal of wealth is, someone who's been in it for a while, someone who has wealth that's been passed down to you generationally. So I guess technically there could be levels to this.
No, seriously. And I think a lot of this piggybacks from the conversation we had. If it wasn't last week, it was the week before, in terms of people in different stages of their lives not being financially in a place that they want to be. So even I think that plays a role in what stage are you in your life and what is considerably wealth to you. I know initially when the question came up, Janelle was like, I thought we were just all trying to get to wealthy, but that really is different for different people, based on what you've been brought up around. I know even for like me, I grew up with watching my parents earn and go and buy a home, moving from an apartment building and earning and owning a home. So my mindset was about being a homeowner, during my lifestyle, but everyone doesn't have that. So for me, one of my goals was to own a home, and that be a level of considerable wealth in my mind. But for others, I know that's not necessarily the way that things are, the way that they look at things. So I think this is a very interesting question. And again, this week we have another amazing opportunity to jump into the conversation with the guys from EYL and hear what their thoughts were on this great question. So let's jump into it now.
What are three major tiers of financial security that everyone needs to strive for? What are three tiers?
This post went viral, and every time I post it, it usually does. But the first level of security that you want to get to is $100,000 invested in the market. Now, I've always said that you won't feel safe until you get to a minimum $100,000 to $600,000 invested. I know that number scares some people, but our job on the show is to tell you the truth, even if it's a scary thing to hear. 100,000. Here's a quick exercise. Multiply what your bills are now times the next 5 years and let me know how much money in chat you would need if a disaster happens to not work for the next 5 years. So 100,000 is level one. From the people that I've talked to that are doing really well, the second tier that you want to get to is like a level of like financial peace. That's the $10 million mark. So I know some people are like, hey, I don't have it. I don't know how I'm going to get there. But one thing I would like to do maybe at the London and Chicago shows is to build out a blueprint for how to get you guys to maybe 5 million to 10 million. Trading has considerable risk. Just because we give you a plan, it does not mean that it's a guaranteed way to do so. Please clip this up. Mike, please put the disclaimer at the bottom. And then that third tier, I've said this before, the number of true wealth, true freedom is $28 million to $30 million. So I know there's a lot of conversation around how much money is needed. And I know I even get some pushback every time I make this post, but imagine if for the next 5 years, we have inflation run like this for the next 5 years, 100,000 isn't what it used to be even 10 years ago, let alone 25. And yes, it's scary to hear these numbers. I'm not doing it as number porn or fear porn, but I have to give you the real number. So write this down. 100,000, 10 million is the second tier. 28 to 30 is like the final tier where you can take care of you, your family, others. And if you don't think this is true, why do you think all these artists are selling their catalogs at these rates for this kind of money? Athletes are signing the contracts that they are signing for. Some Supermax deals are now 300 million. If 20 million or 5 million was enough, they will sell it there. It's not. And what can we do to help you to get to the $100,000 mark faster if you're not there? So I know this post always gets a lot of pushback. This conversation gets a lot of pushback, but these are the real numbers that need to be hit to take care of your family. Yes, I'm sure you can go in Idaho somewhere and live off whatever amount of money per year. But if you live in New York, Texas, everyone from California is moving to Texas, Jersey, Florida, it's really tough to get by on. I mean, I saw the report. You guys even posted it. Like 100 grand feels like what, 32,000 in New York City?
Yeah,
36.
100,000 is equivalent to 36,000 in New York City. That's where it goes the lowest, and where it stretches the highest is Memphis, Tennessee, and it's equivalent to $86,000. And that was taken into local taxes, local inflation, transportation, housing is the biggest expense, and they see how much of 100,000 is really equal to as far as your buying power and spending power.
It's interesting. You wrote those numbers in the post. I kind of took the question and kind of flipped it, like from a practical standpoint. Like I did the levels in terms of like things that people can practically have outside of numbers, right? So I broke it down into financial stability being a level, like that's a tier, right? Having and being confident enough with your financial situation, having enough money to pay your bills, having little to no debt, and then having liquid assets, right? So that's a tier, right? People can obtain that type of tier. And then have 6 months saved. I added that because I know he always says that. He always says you want to have at least 6 months, if not optimally 12 months saved.
Yeah, I think we need 12 given what they're doing with inflation.
So that's financial stability. I think another tier is financial security, and that's having investments and assets generate passive income enough to cover your basic expenses, right? And so you go from stability, and now you have security. I think another tier, and these are like, again, practical ways, is financial freedom, right? And most people are like, oh, that's the goal I want to get to. And so I kind of defined it like having enough passive and residual. So passive meaning that you have money coming in, and residual meaning continuously coming in to cover living expenses so that you can spend time doing the things that you want to do and love doing rather than doing things to make money, right? And so there's three tiers there. There's financial stability, there's financial security, and then there's financial freedom. And then the last piece, and a shout out to my brother Ash Cass, is financial abundance, right? And most people, that's like having enough. Now, having all of those things, but also having the philanthropic part of it. Now you've accumulated from residual and passive, and now you have actual money to now give back to others. And so like when we look at it in tiers, and it's interesting, like, because I saw the post that you put up, I was like, let's attack it a little differently. It's like from a practical standpoint, like how long will it take for me to get to this tier, right? I made it to this tier. How do I get here? How do I get here? Rather than putting a number to it, because I feel like they're like, well, how am I gonna get to 100,000? Well, let's figure out, because it doesn't even matter the amount. It's like, are you in this tier? Like, are you financially stable right now? Some people might be, right? They may make 100,000. It's like, I'm financially stable because I have enough to make my living expenses. So that was just, it's interesting. You went that way. I just went another route for other people too.
I take it you were a teacher in the past life, right? And I want to say this too for the entrepreneurs: the dangerous tier to be in is like the 500,000 to $1 million space, because you have cushion, but you don't have enough safety. Like 2 bad years, 2 bad product cycles, 1 PR disaster, you can be knocked down really fast. So I know there seems to be like exponential leaps and bounds in those tiers, but there's a reason why. Even like for 20 years, it was like, hey, 3 to 6 months savings is okay. A little bit through now, and then
I wanted us to jump back in here, Jay, before they finished up.
Thank you. Yes, this was woo.
If you guys are loving what you guys are seeing, oh, sorry, Jay, hold on. If you guys are loving what you guys are hearing so far, drop it in the drop it in the comments below. Any takeaways that you've gotten so far, drop that in the comments as well. Go ahead, Jay.
So sometimes hearing the numbers, like it's kind of like that splash of cold water that you need on your face to kind of like bring you back into reality. So I actually like that he gave those numbers and that they are really scary. 100K invested. And then I'm not sure if he means for financial peace, he said 10 million, but I don't know if he means 10 million liquid or if he means 10 million invested. That part I wasn't sure about. And then true wealth is 28 to 38 million. And then I loved how they apparently recently qualified how much 100K really is, depending on what city you live in the United States.
Yeah, that was a big deal. That's a big deal.
That's huge. Yeah. I mean, for those of you who don't know, Winston and I are in New York. I've known that New York has the highest cost of living expense in the country. I've known that for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
For various reasons, in terms of various reasons, but to see that in comparison to what it could be in another city, or the max it could be in another city, and that being Tennessee, that like really blew my mind. Anyway, so I really appreciated the numbers, and then as a fellow educator, I really like the way that they broke down, like, again, qualitatively instead of quantitatively. But
I was just I was gonna say
to be stable versus financial stability versus financial security versus financial freedom versus financial abundance. I love that.
Yeah. I completely agree. I love the different aspects that these guys took towards the answer, because I agree. I think the numbers are incredibly helpful. It does put a face to this thing.
Yeah.
Because I know that for the longest, when we look at this statistic, I do a lot of it that I'm and when they show that like the average income is like 32,000, I'm like, that is not going to get you nothing in New York. It's the first thing I think, just from having a background in real estate, renting to people for years, looking at the approval process that we have to put people through to get them in their apartments. In New York, we're looking at you needing to make 40 times the annual income just to be able to live in the apartments you live here. So our perspective on things financially is very different. So I love that they were able to give those numbers. And he's right. To me, somebody thinking, wait, come up with 100,000 invested. He's not even talking about 100,000 in income. He's talking about literally just money you have invested in the market, circulating while you probably bringing obviously an income with your job. So I love that, and I agree with you, Janelle. The teacher vibe came out when he was talking about the perception, I would say the perceptual versions of those things being able to be abundant. Words like that I think hit different. Than the numbers can be really scary. I don't know if any of you have even thought about what it would be to own or have $38 million. And to that point, I think he was talking about liquid, whether it's in investments. Let me be careful with that. Whether it's in investments outside of the market, I don't think he meant 38 in just the market, but diversified over a portfolio. And to their point, if you watch what happened, guys, with COVID and how certain industries got hit, you want to have that mindset of, I want to have my eggs in a few different baskets. Janelle and I do things here on social media. We do things within network marketing. I know Janelle has multiple businesses, the books, like there's a reason why there's like a lot of things we're doing. It's not like a schizo. Like it's Janelle wants to speak. She wants to have that platform going virtually. Like there's a reason why I think as entrepreneurs, we look at things from that perspective, because any industry, anything you are doing, nothing against jobs, but your job can shut down. And like they were talking about, if you don't have 6 months, a year's worth of money sitting in the bank, what's going to happen? Look what's going to happen with your family, the people you have to take care of. I myself personally, I'm going through something now where leaving a company because of COVID, starting out my own personal training, the numbers, learning how to navigate, what it looks like. This is real life. We gotta be a kind of aware of, like, again, have these conversations. I'm happy to be having this type of conversations. It's, other levels of this. All right. You want to jump back in, Jay?
Yes, let's do it. I'm ready.
All right, let's get this back up. Bing bong. All right.
I know some people that have been living off of savings or supplemental savings for 2 years. You probably need 5 or 6 times the amount of money than whatever baseline number they normally give you.
And also, put a post up today that got a lot of traction as far as the U.S. medium income level. The source is the U.S. Census Bureau. So don't argue with me. Argue with the Census
Pretty
Bureau.
good source.
But yeah, all households together, 70,000. Married households, 106,000. That's interesting. A healthy marriage is a wealth hack. Obviously, for obvious reasons, right? With 2 incomes, it's not only beneficial, it's beneficial financially. We can have a different conversation about that. But 20 to 24, 51,000. 25 to 34, 74,000. 35 to 44, 90,000. 45 to 54, 97,000. 54 to 64, 75,000. 65 and up, 47,000. So this is interesting to me on a few different levels. The highest earning potential that you have is from 45 to 54. That's interesting because most people that tune in and watch us and consume our content is between 24 and 44. So you haven't even reached your full potential yet.
Your peak yet. Yeah.
That's urgent. But also you see how it goes up and it comes back down. By 65, people making 47,000, obviously, because they're retired and they're just living off of there. So you have to figure out a way to continue to make money, even because 65 is not really that old these days. So it's like you don't want to be, just relying off of your kids to take care of you when you become 65 years old. It also speaks to the income inequality from Black and white people, because a lot of people, like in the comments, they were surprised at these numbers, and it seems like a lot of money to a lot of different people. But that's because most people hang around people similar to themselves. So you don't even realize the wealth gap. And I realized that when I was a financial advisor, because I used to, be around so many different people, and they're like, they're my client. They're like, just have somebody just invest $100,000. And I'm thinking in my brain, I don't even know anybody that has $100,000.
Yeah, they say like it's $1,000.
Yeah, but it was so
Yeah.
but it's so common in a lot of different areas from a lot of different people, right? But it's like most people hang around people similar to themselves. So you hang around people similar to yourselves, you don't realize that 2 miles down the road, those houses are times more than your house, or those people have $2 million in your retirement account and you have nothing. So it's kind of hard to really even appreciate it if you're not fully exposed to what other people are experiencing. So it's a very involved conversation, but it's interesting to see what people gauge as wealth, what people gauge as success, what people look at as far as having an income that they can live off of, as opposed to other people. So these are important conversations to have, because exposure, very important.
Absolutely. And if you're not there yet, I would definitely advise you put in chat a business idea that you have that will allow you to get to that number. We all have built businesses to get there, then invest the capital from the business into public equities and stocks. If you're not there yet, you almost are at an advantage because you have a dream. You have the ability to dream to get there faster. Put in the comments what are some businesses that you can start if you're not there yet to help you get there by next year.
Man, I
Actually,
love
like
this.
the way they ended it with
Yeah.
like something for us to do and think about, kind of like last week, right? Because they also had questions for us to think
In the
about
end of
last
it
week.
as well. Yeah. And I also love where they took the conversation, because it actually was where my mind went when I was thinking about this. It was where the part of the conversation I started earlier, in terms of just like what I've watched my parents do. And I've talked about this on multiple episodes about my mom being in network marketing. And so I'm growing up around that. And one of the things I love about that industry is the vision casting that I find in that like environment, as opposed to what I've experienced, just me, in like the corporate setting. And I really haven't had corporate jobs, but just even in that type of ideology, I don't think it gives you the ability to dream about wealth and building a life that's just like, I mean, I know there are people who don't ever make the top ranks, but being around people who are dreaming about, like, engaged with life, it's something that, like, they talk about that age, that that statistic about what age people are earning at, and I was not surprised at all about people in their retirement age making so much less than what they were making when they were in their 20s or 30s. And that blows my mind, because at that stage of life, you're having to have expenses that you're not even you don't even know about, because you are now going to have to deal with medical expenses and lifestyle things where you're going to need assistance to. As a personal trainer, and that's the demographic of people I work with, I watch how the things they eat, if you think it's kicking your butt now in your 30s or 40s, imagine when you're in your 60s and you need to eat certain types of food, and the cost of living is going to be a rising thing, so your income has to meet that. So how are you in your later part of your years in life not having an increase in your income? Cost of living increase, at least.
Yes to that. I've seen a bunch of statistics recently that have said that I thought it was interesting that, because it's like it's who you are surrounded with, and so your clients, and you're focused on like the drop. I thought it was really interesting, the peak. I recently saw that. I recently have been seeing a lot of data to support the fact that typically the peak of income happens between 45 and 55, I believe I wrote it down.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that confirmed. But the other thing, and I have like my gut is doing all sorts of things right now to me, because I feel like listening to this really convicted me in the, like, who do you surround yourself with bit?
Yeah.
Like who, because you surround yourself with people who are like you. And that includes, I mean, we've heard this, like you are the average of the top 5 people you hang out with, right? And that means financially, spiritually, intellectually, the list goes on. If we're focusing on the financial bit, I was feeling super convicted because I was talking to somebody who was also a financial advisor, and he was like, I don't work with people who aren't making 150 or less. And I was like, instead of being like, oh, I don't know anybody like that, the first thought in my head is, I need a new circle of people. Because why don't I know people who make that amount of money? Like, why don't I know? Or if there are people in my life who do make that amount of money and I just don't know about it, like, why don't I know about it? So that way I can figure out like how they got to where they got. And so Winston's point earlier about like why we do all the things, I recognize that, like, yeah, I am pushing for that 150. So if that's the case, like, why do I have to do all these things? Oh, guess what? Because I don't have one income that like
does,
brings that one in, right? And then if there was that, fine, there's that, knowing that that could go away because it's part of a job. And so then you're trying to establish other things. But to be quite honest, I'm feeling like I'm just trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And recently I have been introduced to people who do make that amount. And I am feeling, it's not like I don't feel like I don't belong. Like intellectually, I feel like I belong, but there's like this, like, what is it about myself that apparently I missed? Is it a value in myself that I don't have, that they have, that they just expected a certain salary and like I'm just out here settling? I'm going through a very, this is just like essentially making me have to confront something that I am dealing with right now, which is like what's going on right now with my current circles and where I see myself in them and what do I need to do to shake this up.
You know, I love that. And what comes to mind is, man, it's so funny. There's so much value. I'm going to keep preaching network marketing. I'm sorry, guys. But we used to listen to people, like to Janelle's initial question. I remember thinking, oh, we hung out with a lot more of those people when we were actively engaged in building our business. Like you were around those things. You went to trainings. Like it's just interesting to listen to. That was the answer at that stage for what got us, like that would fulfill what you were looking for in that question, right? But then what I also thought about, I can't remember who gave this speech or talk, but it was about where someone starts. I think it may have been David Peach. So shout outs to David Peach. Hope you're doing physically. I hope you're doing well. And I think he was essentially talking about where you start on a football field, right? And why some people, maybe even from the outside, we don't understand how someone's gotten to a level at some point in their life, when they do and all that, but you don't know where they started on the field in their journey to what we perceive as success, right? Because what comes to mind when what you're touching on, Janelle, to me is a number. It's like there's just a number. If you made this income, then you'd feel whatever, which is funny because if we get into the whole other the mental side of it, is if you felt like you belonged, you'd make the money that these guys were making. But you don't feel like you belong, so it's keeping away the money, because that's what people want to buy. It's how does she get that confident? How does she figure that she went through that thing? And look at her. What are you doing? That's literally what you're asking. It's like, what are you doing to feel the way you feel about yourself, right? And it's essentially what coaching is that the industry of what coaching or helping, training, I mean, whatever it is, because even though I'm helping someone through physical movements, there's so much mental and having to motivate or maybe not motivate, but inspire and give logical reasons. What you do in your job with your field comes with that same thing. It's like, how can I impart to you the knowledge I have about this subject that you clearly don't, and then why do you find value in me? So value to me is inherently tied to what we've been taught is money. And that's what's wild, because like you don't make this money, so therefore you don't think you're at the same value as these people. It's again, I'm like, I don't want to go too long in time, but I love this conversation because I love that even your authenticity, just now to say that you're going through this, because I find myself going through literally sitting in the park, like, like I don't make this money. Am I not valuable?
Oh, I'm not thinking. So I've gotten to the point where I'm past that. I'm not as valuable. I'm like, I am as valuable.
No,
I'm intelligent. I'm as intelligent. My undervalue of myself, sorry, I don't mean to be screaming, but my undervalue of myself, I feel like I'm looking like, man, this has held me back, because I'm out here with these people who I obviously belong with, and yet I am not making the amount of money that they're making.
Oh, but that's the part there. So the money is the thing that makes you feel like there's a divide. That's the point I'm trying to make, is listening to this conversation about what wealth means. It comes from this perspective of essentially what you earn is where you tie some of your value in.
Well, based on, well, I was going to say, it's really just based on the ability to live in New York. Like I'm out here struggling, thinking like I need to struggle. Like this is like a part of who I am. And now I'm like, actually, no, because I keep making what they make, because I do have the same value. I fit into this circle, and yet I'm struggling for what? Like what? Because so I think that's where I am. I mean, in terms of, but yes, most people tie a value to their worth based on how much they get, which is why if you're tied to a job, it's always going to suck, because you're never going to make the amount of money
that you're worth.
That you're worth. Yeah. So
guys,
that's a whole
the other part of this, and I know the time will go off today. I don't even know.
Oh no, yeah.
Okay, no worries.
All right, we need to go. Yeah,
we'll wrap it up soon. But all right, so the thing that was interesting, and they touched on this a little bit about how marriage is the hack to financial. Like, there's so many levels to this, guys, because essentially, if we do get into that conversation, and I know on the rundown we are going to have conversations around monogamy and things like that. So make sure you guys check out the rundown on Mondays. But I know that one of the things that when they said that, it made me think of what marriage was essentially set up for, in part when it started, was to economically help families push themselves up. But the last thing I'll say is the where incomes make a difference in different states. And I remember when I first heard that, like a doctor in one state made one thing and another in another state earned something else. And what blew my mind, this is just the analytical part of my mind, is like, why is his knowledge worth more in one place and not in the other place?
It's never that. This is why I told you, it's not that it's the fact that I'm struggling is the issue. Yeah. It's not my value. It's the fact that I'm struggling in New York.
Oh no, I'm just saying for just from a position standpoint, I was just like, why is a doctor in New York 100 something?
It's it's cost of living, because the what they bring to the table is the same. It's literally
the same information.
What does it cost to live here?
And that's what really, so even something, and again, maybe this is just as New Yorkers, and this is hitting a sore spot for us, but I remember that sweet house we had in Pennsylvania for $1,200, that 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom with a deck out and back for $1,200. So I miss you, PA. All right.
Please, guys, please put your comments in. Please, all your thoughts. We want them in the comments, please, because we read them. We want to get this conversation going.
Absolutely. And guys, again, join us next week as we dive into another amazing video and hear and share our thoughts and want to hear what you guys have to say. But until then,
as always, remember, you deserve
the good life.
Say that.
Say that. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.